Are you a cool mom? What is a cool mom? Is it important to be one? This episode gets into what my own parents were like. I talk about why I respected them, and I give a few pieces of advice that I have extrapolated from living with them, seeing them, interacting with them, and other parents throughout my life. Okay, but if you don't want to stick around for the whole episode, I'm just going to be kind to you and give you the top tips right now. You're welcome. Ready? 1, be silly. 2, be consistent. 3, be up to date. 4, be calm. 5, be open. Also in this episode, you're going to find out what kind of parents you had and learn what kind of mom you want to be. Let's get started. Hi, my name is Lindsay Clyde, and this is Learn, Live, Love Yourself, a podcast where self-discovery leads to self-lovery. Each episode, I am delivering fun, practical ways to peel back the layers of your life and tap into that deep down you. Changing your mind one challenge at a time, this podcast will get you loving yourself better every day. It's time to grow. Come learn, live, love yourself with me. Episode 14. How to be a cool mom. Oh yeah. So dumb. All right, let's talk about being a cool mom. My story is this. My mom is awesome. She's always been my biggest fan, and she's one of the 3 people who listen to this podcast, so thanks, Mom. She and my dad have always supported me in whatever crazy thing I wanted to do. They always made me feel like I could do anything I wanted to in my life. But they also set rules. They gave me chores to do throughout the week, and on Saturday mornings, they told me I couldn't watch certain movies. They got mad when I didn't come home on time for curfew. They grounded me when I went somewhere they told me not to. And you know what? I loved them very much. And seriously, I did. Now and back then. Even as a teenager, when they didn't get me or told me that they didn't want me seriously dating anyone, I still loved them. I really respected them. I consider myself extremely lucky that I had such a good relationship with my parents. One thing I especially appreciated about my mom is that she never made me clean my room. I cleaned my room maybe 6 times a year, at the most. And when I did, I really loved the feeling of a clean room. But my life as a teenager was really busy, and I noticed and was grateful that she never forced me to take care of my own space. As an adult, I love a clean house. Keeping things tidied up brings me great joy. So as I grew, I've come into this realization, my own realization, that that's the kind of house that I wanted for myself. And yeah, my house is still messy a lot of the time, but when I clean the house, it's because I really want to. Because I love the feeling of when it's clean. So I've been trying to think about this. Why did this mean so much to me? Even as a moody teen, I recognized and I was grateful for this small respite from life. And so it must have meant so much. If as a teenager, I actually realized that I was grateful for this. So why? One of my ideas is that she let me have my space. So she hardly ever went into my room. She wasn't being bothered by my mess. I also didn't share a room with anyone, so my mess was not really taking a toll on anyone else in the family. I think the autonomy of choosing what to do with the area that was mine was so huge for me. She wasn't being overbearing about something that I thought didn't matter. I think she picked her battles well, and I admire that in her. And I think this is just the surface of why I got along with my parents. I liked what they stood for. I had a belief that if I did what they said, I would be okay. A few times of not doing what they said left me with sick feelings in my stomach and sometimes literal scars from the mistakes I went out and made. And if they found out, I was left with real consequences. A lifetime of listening, observing, testing boundaries, and learning from mistakes, and learning from my correct decisions, too, helped me feel capable enough to make choices of my own. They gave me a foundation that has supported me even years after I've left the house. And all of this is just to say that I think my parents are cool. No, they don't know how to floss or do the hype, and really neither do I. I can floss. I know how to floss. Kate taught me how to floss. But the hype, I'm not quite sure. I don't get the hype. Anyway, but really, I'm proud to call my parents my parents. All right, let's move on from that. Now you know what kind of parents I have, and that they're the bomb. How can we be cool moms ourselves? Let's learn what that would look like for each of us. All right, let's move on. Now you know my parents are the bomb. Let's figure out how we can be cool moms. Let's learn what that would look like for each of us in our lives. Here are some questions. As a kid, what did you love about how your parents raised you? As a teen, what did you love about your parents? And that question can be hard for some of us, but really try and dig, what did you love about your parents as a teenager? And then as an adult, right now, what do you appreciate about their choices in raising you? And last question, as an adult right now, what is one thing you would change about how they raised you? And why? All right, so let's look. Is there a theme to your answers? And if you don't have kids, you can still answer these questions and think to the future. What are some ways you could incorporate these ideas into raising your future kids? And if you are a parent now, does your life look like this with your kids? Are you following the same pattern? And side note here, don't beat yourself up if you've ever done something that you swore you'd never do as a parent. Like, when I have my own kids, I will never do that. And then you go and do that. It's okay. It's totally okay. Because think about it. They were your almost 24/7 example of what a parent does in certain situations, who a parent is in certain situations. So it's totally normal for you to behave like them, especially in stressful times and even in non-stressful times. We exemplify the people who have had the greatest impact on us, and that's completely fine and right in line with the human experience. But knowing that, we have to be intentional about how we parent. Like, no, don't obsess over every single time you do something that is below the standard of what you expect from yourself. Okay? If you beat yourself up over and over again, it's not going to help you change over time. That's not helpful. You will not be a better parent if you obsess. So, stop. But being intentional can look like trying to follow themes. Every day doesn't have to look the same. Every response to a certain situation doesn't have to be the same, but maybe, overall, your children know that you love them no matter what. Or, in the end, they feel confident to go out and explore because you gave them plenty of opportunities to do that as children. Maybe they will always feel safe in your home no matter how old they get. If you could pick just one thing to be known for as a mom, what would it be? Now, how do we live this? Yeah, it's really nice to talk about how good of a parent you want to be. Real life, getting down to the dirty diapers and the yelling matches, like, how do we remember these lofty ideals in the midst of daily stressful life? Because parenting is hard. I'm only about 6 years into it right now, and I'm like, oh no, my kids have really strong personalities. How am I going to control them now? How am I going to control this? And that's the whole point. We really just can't control it. We have this idea of being able to control our children, I think, as they are small, because we see that they listen to us and we can change their behavior sometimes by saying certain things or giving certain consequences. But as my kids are getting older, I'm realizing it was all just an illusion. It was not ever real. I mean, maybe they were a little bit more moldable as babies, but as they get older and they have their own ideas, we are not going to be able to step in and do everything for them all the time, and they are not always going to live up to the ideal, your ideal, or even their ideal. You didn't, did you? I didn't, for sure I didn't. And so I have to keep reminding myself, give them some space. It can get really tricky to try and navigate all the stages that these kids go through. And for me, it seems like once I finally have a stage figured out, they grow out of it. And then I have new problems to solve. But I believe if we can always come back to our themes, the overall theme or idea that you want to hold on to as a mom, I believe that we will feel proud of our effort in the end, whether or not our kids ever call us cool. And really, as we find out next week in an interview with teen parenting coach Kristen Goodman, woohoo, which I'm so excited about, we realize in the end, it is more about how we view ourselves as parents than how our children view us as parents. All we have control over is our own thoughts about who we are and how we parent. And since that's all we have control over, we've got to focus on that, right? So to better help us, here are some of my tips that I've learned from my parents and from others as I've watched my friends and family throughout my life. 1. Be silly. A goofy face, a joke, a smile, laughing harder at the knock-knock joke than is warranted can lift spirits and increases good feelings all around. And if you've got a teen who just kind of scowls at you, be goofy anyway. It's about you enjoying yourself and letting your enthusiasm seep into them over time. 2. Be consistent. It's so hard to be consistent. I've been trying, and sometimes it works, but sometimes, it's not working. And it's because I'm lazy or I say things that I don't mean. For example, the kids are arguing at home, and I'm really excited to go meet all of our friends for a play date at the park, and I, in my frustration, just yell out, "If you don't stop fighting right now, we're not going to the park." And they look at me, and then they turn back and go fight. And then I realize, oh, crap. Oh, man. I just said, if you don't stop fighting right now, we are not going to the park. So I gave them something kind of unrealistic in that situation to live up to. And then I took something away from them that I was looking forward to. I wanted to go hang out with the moms just as much or maybe even more than they wanted to go and hang out with their friends. So now I'm in this predicament. Do I stay consistent and follow through with what I just said I would do and give myself a consequence as well as the children to try and teach them not to fight with each other? Or do I go back on my word, take them to the park anyway, thus teaching them that when I ask them to do something, it doesn't really have merit, or that they don't have to listen because the consequences aren't real. They're not going to come. So that's my biggest struggle in being consistent. It's about speaking and dishing out consequences before I think them through. And there's other ways to be consistent in your life, but that's the one I'm working on right now as a mom. Be consistent with consequences. Because I can tell if my kids know consequences will come consistently for their actions, they are better able to deal with life. And our house is actually more peaceful. I believe this is because kids need certain boundaries to feel safe. And it seems weird, but giving true-to-life consequences sets them up for better success as an adult. So that's what I'm working on. Be consistent with consequences. It's not easy. Somebody else give me some more advice about this because it's so hard. I think it's more mindfulness on my part, but we'll work on that. Okay, tip 3, be up to date. Research what's popular right now. Don't stop learning about pop culture. Personally, I was so excited to graduate life and leave the fads and other trends behind. I don't love keeping up with that stuff, but I'm beginning to realize, especially in this era of smartphones, it pays big time to be in the know about what the kids know. It's almost impossible to keep up with them because they are in constant interaction with their other kids, their peers, who, all this stuff circulates around. But doing some research and asking your kids some questions can go a long way. You're not always going to need to name drop that newest rapper they found on SoundCloud in some regular conversation, but just knowing about what's happening in their world can boost your street cred in a bunch of different circumstances. I'm working on this because my daughter, she's just 6 years old, but she came home from kindergarten multiple times saying stuff, and I was just like, what in the world is that? I don't even know what she's talking about. And she's like, watch, Mom, let me do the hype. And she like jumps up on, this is the hype. I was talking about this earlier. She's jumping up in one foot and like pumping her fist in the air and just like hopping on one foot. And I'm like, is that a dance move? Like, is that the real thing? Is she even doing it right? I haven't looked it up because I'm kind of scared, but whatever. The hype. Or I don't know if they're just saying like, that's hype. Because I think they use it as an adjective for something cool. I don't know. I'm 27 years old, guys. And I'm so out of it, and I love it. I love just kind of being my own person and not needing to know these things. But I can tell this is definitely going to come in handy as I get older and as my kids get older. And so I'm trying to stay up on the apps. I'm trying to stay up on the lingo. And I just kind of shake my head because I think I'm better than that. But you know what? I'm not better than that. I was totally a part of that in high school, but we said other things. I don't even remember what we said. I don't know, like the bomb. Oh, that's awesome. So cool. Super awesome. I don't know. We definitely didn't say groovy, right? That's what our parents said. Okay, anyway, whatever. Moving on. Tip number 4, be calm. Your peace will be the anchor in their storm. And Kristen Goodman next week has some great advice about this as well. Follow her on Instagram. I'm just going to give a plug for her right now. Kristen Goodman Coaching. Kristen Goodman, Goodman Coaching. Kids are looking to you to see how to react. Have you ever had your child like playing around, they're running on the sidewalk or something, and they trip and they fall, and they're not that hurt, but you kind of just sit there and watch to see what's going to happen? For me and for my kids, a lot of times they just kind of stop and they look up. And if my face, I've totally done a non-scientific experiment with this, just kind of randomly changing my expression. If they look up and they see me going, like worried face or like, oh no, they start to cry. But if I quickly look away, like I didn't see it, or like give them a smile, like, hey, it's okay, get up. Often they will not cry. And this is if they're not really hurt. Sometimes they do cry, but my reaction still, even if they did get hurt, my reaction changes how they react. So their crying will be less than it would have been if I'm like, are you okay? Oh my gosh, it's bleeding, whatever. It is so important to be calm. If you can take a few seconds and digest what's happening in an emergency, of course, don't take a few seconds to digest, like jump into action. But if it's not an emergency, which most of life isn't an emergency, look at the spilled milk, look at the kid, maybe make a dramatic face like, this looks like a big mess. What could we do to clean up this big mess? And just taking a second to be kind of silly about this. Yeah, the milk's dripping on the floor, off the table, and all into the cracks of the high chair or whatever. But taking a few moments gives everybody time to settle down, get some perspective, and also equips the children with calming mechanisms in stressful situations and gives them time to think about how they can help and how they can make their situation better for themselves. And of course, this will depend on how old your kid is, but for me, I've realized that that is really helpful. They love taking ownership of their own messes or coming up with ideas to help. It really gives them confidence. Number 5, be open. Tell your kids, appropriately, of course, according to their age, what you're struggling with. You could say, I'm having a really hard time being patient. What do you think I could do to help myself with that? And you'll be surprised at how good their advice is. So the other day, a nightmare I had the night before, we woke up and I had this nightmare and it was just plaguing me. It kept replaying itself over and over in my mind. And I asked my girls, what can I do to stop thinking about something bad? And Kate, my older one, said, you could think about something good. And Lucy, rolling off of that idea, said, you could think about Disneyland with our family. And you know what? It worked. I do that now. Every time sad or scary anxiety type things come into my brain, I think about the one time we went with our family to Disneyland. And it totally works. Thank you, Lucy and Kate. Thank you for that idea. Of course, I know basically and theoretically, when I'm thinking about something bad, I could replace it with something good. But having their specific Disneyland example really helps me, and I get to go back to a time that it was actually really fun for our family, and the sun was shining, and we were eating pineapple Dole Whip, and dwelling on that really actually gets me out of my funk of whatever I'm thinking about. I wouldn't have had that idea on my own, honestly. So being open with my kids has allowed them to help me with my own problems and also see that I'm not perfect. They need to see you struggling and working through things. They need to see that even mom and dad have hard times and need help. They need to see that it's okay to ask others, especially family members, for ideas for self-improvement. They need to see that the home is a safe place to talk about the questions that they have and the things that they are feeling. And I love this point so much because I am such an open person anyway. And I really feel like it can strengthen relationships, especially between parents and children, and this can be invaluable. And the same applies when you're wrong or you make a mistake. Show your kids that it's okay to admit fault. It's okay to do something wrong, to make mistakes, or to not act as well as you should have. And it's okay, it's more than okay, to pick yourself up afterwards and move on from those mistakes. But the kids cannot see it happening if all of your self-improvement happens behind closed doors. The kids, our children, need to see that we are humble and teachable, and they will respect that. All right, so there it is, my little snippets of wisdom that I've collected for myself over my short time being a parent. Okay, be silly, have fun. Don't worry about looking dumb. 2, be consistent. Be consistent with consequences. You pinky promise me and I'll pinky promise you that we will work harder on being consistent with consequences. 3, be up to date. Do your research. Don't be an old grandma, even if you are an old grandma, and love it, okay? It's totally fine, but you need to stay up on the research on all the pop culture. 4, be calm. Take a minute to breathe. Everything's going to be okay. And 5, be open. Let your kids know that it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to do what it takes to move on and be better. Doing these small things can help you narrow down and figure out what the overall theme of your parenting life will add up to be. And as we are mindful about these things, it'll come into place. And don't try all at once to just overhaul your parenting. I feel like sometimes I read parenting books and I get like, oh, this is awesome, I'm going to do all of this. But then I end up failing because, oh, that's a ton of stuff to do and I just can't do it. So I just revert to what I used to do. Okay, but take one thing at a time and weave it into your life. Something manageable, something reasonable. And over time, you will see that this tapestry of parenting will be something beautiful and well done. And remember, you need to believe that you are awesome. Even when you make mistakes, turn around, take a deep breath, and say, I'm an awesome mom. I am amazing. I am super cool and hip. I'm super cool and really hip. I dress well, and I take good care of my kids. Even if you're just feeding them cereal for dinner, you're still a perfect mom. And our kids will see that we become the cool moms that we always knew we were. All right, this week's pop challenge is this. Be a cool mom. Think outside the box. Do something fun and unexpected. If you are a stay indoors and read kind of mom, take the kids to go out and explore and do something. If you are a go out and explore mom, stay inside one day and do something interesting indoors. And if you aren't very verbal, say, I love you at the top of your lungs as they walk up the steps to their friend's house. It's never, ever too late to switch it up and try something new when it comes to being a parent. And if you aren't a mom yet, watch other moms this week. Don't judge. It's so easy to judge moms, but don't. Just watch and know a few positive things that you would like to emulate one day when you have your own kids. All right, everyone. That's about it. I'm Lindsay Clyde. This is the Learn, Live, Love Yourself podcast. Subscribe, leave a review, and next time, bring a friend.